Now we are back with the third semi-final. We've just watched the first two, Bayern versus Real Madrid, Real Madrid versus Bayern Munich. Obviously, that ended up with a Bayern Munich away victory at the Bernabeu, and of course the thrilling and exciting Sporting versus Arsenal, where Arsenal got a late winner via Kai Havertz. I'm hoping that today's fixtures are going to be a lot better. First off, we're going to start off with Barcelona versus Atletico Madrid. Now, let's take a look at the predicted lineups for this game. These two have faced each other quite a bit this season. I think this is their fifth meeting thus far. They played obviously in La Liga, and then of course they played against each other in the Copa del Rey. I'm excited for this one. I'm excited because there's been a lot of talk prior to the game that people feel that this is a tie that Barcelona will go ahead and lose. I hope not, of course. I hope that Barcelona obviously make it through to the next round. And I feel like they can. I really do feel like they can. But let's take a look, obviously, at the predicted lineups here. You can see, obviously, Barcelona. I would say notably what you would see in this team. Of course, this is if this is the lineup, for example, right? I would look at that team straight away and I would say, well, defense is where Atletico Madrid may get some joy, if I'm being totally honest with you. A lot of people have spoken quite extensively about the Barcelona high line that Hansi Flick has obviously adopted since moving to Barcelona. Is it good? Is it something that they should continue doing? Is it, feasible, almost, especially in Europe? Is it going to work? Is it going to allow them to win the Champions League? I mean, last season they won everything but the Champions League. So I would say he's probably looking at it more as a positive than he would a negative. Obviously, we know it has its pluses. Of course, having that high line squeezing up the pitch, but you can't always get caught on that counter attack, especially we've got quick players. And you can see obviously Julian Alvarez, Lookman's obviously fast as well. You look at players like that and you think, okay, they can easily, get in behind. But looking at the Barcelona 11, like I said, it is the defense that I'm looking at and I'm thinking, okay, but I mean, it's a weird one. It is a weird one. Martin and Kubasi at the back there. Listen, I'm not a massive fan of Martin. I think he's a solid squad player, and obviously there's no Kunde here in this lineup, but yeah, he's a solid squad player. And obviously, if you've got to play him, I guess you've got to play him. This is why you have a squad in the first place. I do think that is an area I've mentioned this last season, and I was hoping that Barcelona would, sort out this area. But this is an area I think Barcelona really need to get right in the summer. And I believe if they do get that right, I think they'll be a very, very dominant force. And I mean, you look at some of the players in their team anyway who are quite young. Kubasi obviously being young, Lamine Yamal obviously being young, Pedri, Fermin Lopez. They've got young players in the team anyway. I feel like they'll be able to build, upon this. But yeah, that is one area of the pitch that I do look at. And I think, okay, Eric Garcia obviously slotting in there at right back. He's not really a right back, but of course he's played left back. He's played right back. I think he played left back last season against Inter Milan? I believe it was against Inter Milan. I think he did play left back just due to the injuries and things like that. So, yeah, it is one of those. Obviously, in midfield, you have got Pedri, probably the best midfielder in world football, alongside Dani Olmo. And then you've got obviously Fermin Lopez, Rashford, Lamine Yamal, and Lewandowski. Fermin Lopez, I believe, is one of the most underrated players in Europe. I think if you haven't watched him enough, which a lot of people haven't, which is fair, if you haven't watched him enough, you don't really understand how good he actually is. He is an absolutely top football player, in my personal opinion. He played that number 10 role really, really well, but he's also someone who can come back and drop in to that midfield to help link up the play. But he's also good as playing as that kind of second striker, can drift out wide if needs be. Obviously, Rashford, I think Rashford has been a good signing, albeit a loan signing, but he has been a good signing for Barcelona this season. So, for me, he deserved that place on that left-hand side. And then obviously Lamine Yamal, I mean, what else do we need to say about a player like that? You're talking about one of, if not the best player in world football. And Lewandowski, man, he just seems to continue scoring. It does not matter the age. And this is what I'm talking about. Elite players. It doesn't matter about your age. If you've got that knack for scoring goals, and he's still doing it at one of the biggest clubs in world football after leaving one of the biggest clubs in world football in Bayern Munich to still continue doing your thing, at Barcelona. Honestly, he's going to go down as one of the best strikers of his generation, easily. I don't know where he would rank. We probably have to take a look at the list, but I mean, I feel like it would have to be top three without even looking at the list, to be honest with you. So, yeah, absolutely top player. Like I say, I think when I'm looking at it, it is really just the high line. That is the big thing when it does come to Barcelona. It can get hurt, and it does annoy me at times because I do think at times they just lack the discipline with that high line. I don't feel like they always play it right. It always see again. I guess it's just a game of chances at this point, when it comes to playing that line. But I do worry at times, and looking at Atletico Madrid's team, I think the areas for me that I'm looking at are the Lookman and Alvarez areas. Lookman, obviously, since signing with Atletico Madrid, I think he's been pretty decent. I'll be honest with you. I have actually liked his performances for Atletico Madrid. I think he's really bought into what Simeone is all about, what the team, requires from him over on that left-hand side. And he seems, and again, I don't know, but he seems like someone who's enjoying his football. Obviously, he's at a better and bigger club than Atalanta. He's competing, with the likes of the Real Madrids, the Barcelonas, the latter stages of the Champions League. So, he's had to up his game a little bit anyway. And I think so far, for me, I feel like he's really, took to it, to be honest. And it seems like, Simeone has enjoyed, having him here. Julian Alvarez, I mean, what a player, one of the best strikers in world football. I think a phenomenal talent. Definitely a player who can easily hurt Barcelona. But I'm going to be interested. I'm going to really be interested. I think this could be one of those weird games where he has a quiet night. And it's not because he's not good. It's not because I don't think he can do something. I just think that in games like this, not to say he hasn't scored and stuff like that, I don't know. I just feel like it could be one of those games where he ends up just being really, really quiet and the game won't really be based around whether he can score or not. Obviously, if he gets the opportunity, you really don't want that. But yeah, I think it's just something in my head is telling me that it's going to be a quiet night for Julian Alvarez, although that probably means I've just jinxed it. Griezmann, come on, what a player, man. One of my favorite players, again, of his generation. Really, really top player, someone who can play midfield, as we saw with France. Obviously can play as like a second striker if needs be, play out wide if as needs be as well behind the striker. I think he's going to be quite important in terms of finding space for Atletico Madrid. Obviously you can see they're kind of set up in a 4-4-2, those two banks of four, and then of course you're kind of letting Griezmann just kind of, obviously Barcelona are going to have the lion's share of possession, so he's going to have to be able to drop in and help out, but then also help out Julian Alvarez, when they're going forward. But I think with him and Alvarez, I think it's all about really finding the space, to be honest with you. I think Lookman is going to be someone that they look at as, if we can get him in behind, because I believe, who's faster, him or Alvarez? I might edge it to Lookman, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but I might edge it to Lookman. But I feel like Lookman will be almost the outlet for them. Can we get him in behind, and then potentially, if needs be, getting a cutback, obviously into a Julian Alvarez, for example. But yeah, Griezmann is definitely someone I'm looking at and thinking, just make sure you're picking up your man, make sure you're watching where he's going. Is he finding those pockets of spaces? Obviously, with that high line, I don't think it's so much about finding pockets of spaces anyway. I think it's more about just making those. He's going to be playing the pass more often than not. Obviously, he doesn't have the pace anymore, so he's not going to be able to necessarily get in behind, but he will be finding those passes to a Julian Alvarez, to a Lookman. So I just do think that if Barcelona obviously are going to continue and persist with this high line, you just need to make sure that Griezmann is a player that you're not leaving alone, too much. But yeah, I think that those three players are the ones I look at. Obviously, Llorente and Koke in the middle. I think both hard workers. Llorente, he's a runner. He can make those late runs into the box. Koke is, again, someone, a legend at Atletico Madrid. He's someone who I feel, if he can just get a hold of the game, I think that's what he's going to be trying to do, stopping the game quite a lot, slowing down the flow for Barcelona. Then, yeah, Simeone again on that right-hand side. Again, he's someone to definitely watch out for. I do think that Cancelo is going to just keep your eye on someone, like him. And Atletico Madrid defense, I think, can definitely be got at. I don't think it's a strong back line, but, we shall we shall wait and see. Obviously, injuries to both sides. You can see here, obviously, Frankie de Jong injured, Bernal injured, Rafinha, hamstring injury, Christensen, Tony Fernandez, who's a very good player. For Atletico Madrid, obviously, you got Jose Jimenez, Cardoso, Barrios, Oblak. They're missing some really, really key players here. So I think it's going to be a really, really interesting tie. And as I said before, this is the 5th time that these two have obviously met. Barcelona have scored, in regards to the insights, Barcelona have scored 14 in their last 2 home Champions League matches, which is ridiculous. They've scored 25 goals in their last 5 home games. They've lost 5 of 13 matches without the injured Rafinha this season. So is that an omen for them? Let's wait and see. Atletico conceded 3 or more goals in 3 of their last 6 away matches. So does that scream goals? I think there's going to be goals in this game. They thrashed Barcelona 4-0 at home in the Copa del Rey first leg in February. So again, these are things to look at. You know, if they play the same way and Barca play the same way, could be a problem, of course. Simeone won just 3 of 28 La Liga matches against Barcelona, his worst record against any opponent. That is crazy. That is so crazy. Atletico have not won an away Champions League match this season. That's actually quite interesting. I didn't know that. Either it continues or I don't think there's going to be no draw. It's either continuing or they break their duck tonight, should I say. Atletico obviously won 4-0 in the Copa del Rey, but lost the return leg. So, yeah, interesting matchup, man. Really, really interesting matchup. We're talking about 2 teams who obviously know each other. 2 teams who have, as I mentioned before, faced each other already. Barcelona getting the latest victory 2-1 thanks to Lewandowski's late goal. I think, look, ultimately, I mean, if you've watched Atletico even just a little bit, even this season, and you've watched Barcelona even just a little bit this season, I think you're going to know which way, or you're going to know how the match is going to go. Obviously, how it goes in terms of goals and stuff, yeah, that's obviously remains to be seen. But in terms of how the game is going to actually flow and ebb and stuff like that, I think it's pretty obvious. Barcelona, lion's share of possession. Atletico Madrid hit them on the counter, you know, finding moments, you know, within the game. If that then happens, does Barcelona then capitulate and things like that? I don't know, but I'm going to go with a Barcelona victory. I think 3-1. I'm going to go 3-1 in this game. Take that back to Atletico Madrid. And yeah, just kind of see off the tie. And I think once it gets to 3-1, I think they'll come out comfortable winners in that second leg. But listen, we'll wait and see how that actually goes. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section, people. What do you think the score is going to be between Barcelona and Atletico Madrid? See you guys soon. Peace.